Okay, I had a script written down and things that I was going to say, but I don't have that script up anywhere, so we're gonna wing it. I'm going to a wedding at the end of the summer and I need something to wear. I have an idea of the kind of dress that I want to make, but I've never made a whole dress on a knitting machine before, so I'm going to break it down into individual parts and make sure that those parts work before trying to tackle a big, ambitious project. I have drafted a pattern for a gored skirt. The idea is that you cast on the entire width of the bed and then decrease towards the waist, and I've added some extra math to make sure that the hips will fit correctly. I don't know how full I want this skirt to be, so I made the number of gores configurable. I got a bunch of fingering weight bamboo rayon from Color Mart, and there's another kilogram cone attached to my machine right now. It was on sale, and they have a discount if you buy the full cone. This should be enough to get me through the prototyping phase of this project. I don't know what I'm going to make the final dress in. I'll have to see how this yarn behaves and what I think of it as I go. So I'm going to start with a 2-gore skirt, that's a front and a back. It should fit a bit like an A-line skirt. I want to make sure that I like the pattern and it works correctly before I jump into a bigger skirt. All right, let's get started. Ow! Wait, first. This is a swatch that I made, a test swatch. Look at that drape. This will be a nice, lightweight summer dress. Before we start here, let me just say I am not a web developer. So these are probably not best practices for web development. I am learning React.js as I go. Don't come for me. So this is my pattern. This is the editor of the website that I use. Glitch hosts React.js websites, and it's just an easy way to get up and started. So here's my pattern. It is a React component, and I'm slowly refactoring the whole site to use functional components. They are lovely. Here's a bunch of input stuff, and then the gores are their own component. So let's take a look at that. I've got a bunch of utility functions up here. These utility functions make it easier to reuse some of this logic, and here's the actual rendering. So I do a quick check here to make sure that the gore hip width is larger than your hip circumference so that it will fit in the hips and not be like weird. And if it's not, we break it down into 2 trapezoids so that there is one that shapes from the hem up to the hips and then a different trapezoid that shapes from the hips to the waist to make sure that the whole thing fits. And I have this lovely trapezoid abstraction, so I don't have to rebuild this every time, and it's a lot faster to get up and running with drafting patterns. The bottom of this skirt starts at the full width of the bed, so bring all the needles out into hold, and then it's just an E-wrap cast on. Hang the cast on comb. And then some weights. These are the larger weights from my ribber. And then I'm pushing the needles back into upper working position because my carriage doesn't always like to knit back from hold. I should probably take a look at that. The first row is going to be the trickiest. Go slow and then double check that all of the stitches have knit correctly. And then it's just a lot of knitting. The pattern will tell you how often to decrease. We're decreasing evenly on both sides. After the hip, the decreases get faster. The instructions will probably tell you to take the skirt off on waist yarn at this point, but this is only a 2-gore skirt, so I'm going to leave a marker here and then knit the waistband directly on the piece. I like to knit waistbands at a slightly tighter tension. Leave a long tail for a stretchy seam, and then take it off on waist yarn. Here's the finished panel, and you will need 2 of these. The waistband seam needs to be stretchy enough to fit over my hips, so I'm using a Kitchener stitch into the back of the top row of the skirt. Every time I do this, it takes forever, and I wonder why I put in the effort, but then I see the final thing. This creates a lovely, very stretchy seam. Now it's time to join the side seams with a mattress stitch. I have knit both panels of my skirt, and I have assembled one full seam and one partial seam. I'm going to stop here and do the elastic for the waist. Yep. So for the elastic, I got this massive quantity of elastic on Amazon. I'll link it in the description. I'm going to cut a piece of elastic that is my waist circumference, and then when I join the ends, it'll get a little bit smaller because there's overlap. And then feed it through the casing I just made for the waistband, and then sew it with a zigzag on my sewing machine. Will I film that? Maybe. We'll see. Skirt. Elastic. Oh, I should put something on the end of you. Am I gonna do that though? Am I gonna do that? I knit the casing that's big enough that this should go in easily, but we will see. Okay, we have elastic threaded into waistband, and then I'm just going to overlap and zigzag this on my sewing machine. And here we have a lovely zigzag. It's attached, and I can finish seaming up the skirt. Here's the final skirt, washed and blocked. I think for the most part the pattern did what I intended it to do, and this rayon is just so drapey, and it's going to move really well with a fuller skirt. And it like barely even rolls, so I can leave the hem raw as just a any wrap cast on, which is lovely for a piece that is this big. One of the things that I'm unhappy with is the way that the side seams come to a point. That is happening because this is just a straight trapezoid, and if this were a sewing pattern I would round out the hem, but it's not. So I have some ideas about how I want to fix this. I will get to them in the next video. I also left a marker in the side seam for where the hip starts, and it looks like it's a little too low. So I'm going to decrease the distance between the waist and the fullest part of the hip so that it hits correctly. And also the rayon is very stretchy, and it's probably going to stretch out of shape as I wear it. So for the next iteration of this, I'm going to knit it at a tighter tension so that it has room to grow as I wear it, and it won't be as weird. All right, I think we're gonna end it here. The pattern for this skirt is up on my website, but keep in mind that I'm going to be updating it as I go, and it may not look like this anymore. There's a lot more work to be done in this project, so subscribe to check out the rest of it and see how the final dress turns out. I don't even know how it's gonna look. I've got some ideas, but we'll see. Thanks for watching. Happy knitting. Can you hear the birds in the wall? There's a nest of baby birds in the wall. I'll poke the landlord when they're all grown up. You record, and come on. You record.